Atheists lose once again because we are back, baby. I guess now should be the time that I would explain why I took so long to make another video, why I took such a long break. But, recording this, I realized that I can do whatever I want. So, I won't. But, if y'all really want to know, I was busy and didn't really have a lot of time to make videos. That's it. I definitely love to get back into the stream of making videos like this, because I do find it fun. It's just my personal life definitely takes the #1 priority, obviously. But anyways, let's get to it. So, since I've been gone for this entire duration, guess I should say my thoughts on what's happening right now. Hearing the news about Rooster Teeth's shutdown way back in, I guess, February it was really heartbreaking. People just losing their jobs like that, everyone's favorite shows getting canceled just like that, with a snap of a finger. Of course, if you legitimately cared more about your show getting canceled other than the people that lost their jobs, then you have some morality issues to work out, but that's besides the point. Most of the major shows, they found homes, but it was still on the rocks of what was going to happen to Death Battle. But near the tail end of July, it was announced that Death Battle was going fully independent, with this Kickstarter being made to fund the show. And boy, this Kickstarter really just brought back that fire, dude. That, I don't know, that feeling of being a Death Battle fan and just, you can't stop winning, dude. I'm so happy to see this show continue. And I'll save some more of the gushy and thankful stuff to the end of the video, the outro. But for now, I want to get into talking about this. All the different stretch goals that we have obtained and hopefully are still going to obtain for the Kickstarter. And I want to talk about them. Now you may ask, hey, didn't Capsirus and Biffweed and a bunch of other people do a video exactly like this? Why did you bother making one? Well, there's a very simple answer to that, and it's one that I've already answered in this video. I can do whatever I want. George Washington and all the other American revolutionists fought for this, just so that we could all express our own opinions through video on the Death Battle Kickstarter. Just for that. And with the Kickstarter getting fully funded within 21 minutes, we can officially say that we have never been so back. And these stretch goals, they just keep proving that. Because boy do we have some good ones here, and I'm excited to talk about them. So let's talk about them. Also, if you couldn't tell already, this video is unscripted, and I can't talk to save my life, so fair warning. Alright, so first off, there were two matchups that were at the forefront for being revealed. The first of those two being Bardock versus Omni-Man. While I do agree that it definitely is a little bit strange that they're bringing Omni-Man back this early, he definitely deserves it, because don't get me wrong, Omni-Man vs. Homelander is an amazing episode, but, I mean, come on. We all knew that it wasn't a fight. The animation was really good, and it was perfect for the matchup, but there wasn't any debate present. Omni-Man wasn't really having to try in that fight to win. So, him getting an actual fight that's gonna take effort to win is pretty warranted. And even despite the fact that it's this close to his most recent episode, there's still plenty to talk about, since they obviously couldn't go into much with his previous episode. I mean, they had to avoid spoilers in his previous analysis, and against Bardock, they're definitely going to have to get into that spoiler aspect. So it's good to know that we'll be getting a good amount of fresh stuff in this analysis. And hey, that's not to downplay Bardock in this situation. It's really freaking cool that we're finally getting a Dragon Ball character that isn't just the normal type of Saiyan we see. I mean, from what I know from Dragon Ball, like, Bardock is, like, a regular Saiyan, and he has gone Super Saiyan, but according to people who know Dragon Ball, people don't really like that. But I don't know. that's besides the point. But what I'm really excited for with Bardock is the fact that we're getting a completely new Dragon Ball transformation that hasn't been seen on the show, I mean. The Great Ape. It's surprising that we haven't had a character that's, like, able to do one of the most iconic transformations in Dragon Ball, to my knowledge, at least. But it's so cool that we're finally getting it now. And I've heard that, like, while Super Saiyan Bardock is, like, a bit, like, controversial, I have heard that he has to, like, work towards it and has to have that, like, build-up, which I think is cool, given that, like, most Super Saiyan transformations just kind of happen nowadays. So them treading some new ground with Dragon Ball that hasn't been seen much, if not at all, on Death Battle, it's gonna be really interesting, and I'm really excited to see it. Obviously, I'm not too connected to the matchup, but it really makes sense that they included it here. It's a big matchup in the community. Invincible and Dragon Ball, they're extremely relevant right now, with Omni-Man specifically being a massive character in pop culture. So, picking this one to be one of the front runners for the Kickstarter, it makes absolutely perfect sense. And hey, I haven't even mentioned the freaking preview we have gotten for it, which looks absolutely stellar, by the way. The action looks really intense and smooth, the models and background are very visually appeasing. This looks like an extremely fun fight that we're gonna get here. And with Devil Artemis now being the lead 3D animator for Death Battle, this is an extremely good first impression. I'm very hyped to see where this one goes. Man, that was such a really good first announcement for Death Battle to make. I wonder what could top it out. Oh my lord, dude, it's actually happening. Bowser vs. Eggman is a match I have wanted for so many years. From the first time I heard of, like, the matchup's, like, popularity rising, oh man, I wanted it so bad, dude. Bowser is one of my favorite villains and characters ever. And seeing him get so disrespected in Bowser vs. Ganon was, it was painful, dude. And of course, Eggman was a character that also really needed a run back as well, given that he kind of got shafted in a different way in his own episode. Eggman vs. Wily is definitely one of the highlights of Season 1, but the cop-out ending was so cheap, man. Yeah, I know, Metal Sonic winning is kinda pointing towards Eggman being the victor, but Metal Sonic is officially labeled as the victor between the two, or three, I guess. So, Eggman definitely deserves that comeback. Also, it was in Season 1, so that should in of itself be a reason for him to come back as well. But Eggman is another character that I highly love, dude. And I cannot wait to see what they do with this episode here. Both of these characters are extremely fun, and they have some really, really cool abilities and arsenals under their boot. And I can't wait to see them use them. But, dude, the fact that this is a full-on army fight, with them not only getting abilities that they've had, like, even just once, and getting their wide array of different minions, as well as some big hitters, like King Boo, Metal Sonic, Sage, all of them. Dude, it's so exciting to see, like, what's gonna happen in this animation. Obviously, I don't want to set myself up for disappointment, so I'm keeping my expectations in check, but I'm still just, oh man, I want to see it right now! Obviously, I gotta stick to my boy Bowser. Like, obviously with how shafted he got in his first episode, I really want to see him win this. But like I said, I love Eggman as well, so I still wouldn't mind him, I wouldn't mind seeing him win. But, I gotta see my boy win this. I heard from one person that apparently they were gonna bring, like, Archie into this, which I don't think is true, and I hope it's not true, because then that takes this really fun, debatable fight where each character is roughly even in power and all that, when they have hexes that can counter each other, that really interesting debate, into just Eggman wins. So I really hope they just stick to the main stuff for Eggman and, like, IDW and all that, because that makes the fight, like, extremely fair. And why I love this debate so much, especially with the fact that they're bringing their armies into it. I also hope they don't get into, like, scaling and stuff, at least not in what's presented. I want to see what these characters are capable of on their own without having to rely on comparing to Mario or Sonic and stuff like that. But no matter what, God, dude, I'm so excited. And dude, the preview we got, while unfinished, just makes me ever the more hyped. Moro is fully animating this, and like, it looks spectacular, dude. The models look amazing, the animation is so clean, and I legit don't know what else to say. This is easily like the most hyped I've been for an episode for, well, I guess since Bill vs. Discord, but like, shut up. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say specifically. I'm just so excited for this episode. I cannot wait to see it. So, those were the two, like, frontrunners for what was presented in the Kickstarter, but obviously there has been a lot more that has been confirmed by this Kickstarter. So, let's get into what I think of some of those matches, huh? Or all of them, I guess. First off is kind of an oddball, given the fact that it's not gonna be an official episode, Light versus Columbo. Now, this has obviously been a meme in the Death Battle community for a while now, and I'm like really curious about it. I'm not exactly like super hyped for it, but I'm not against it. And given the fact that it's not an official episode of Death Battle, kinda makes me more excited to see what it is. Mainly because they don't have to follow like the rules of Death Battle for this kind of match, which really wouldn't fit a pair-up like this, so I'm kind of really intrigued to see like what specifically they do with this kind of matchup. And yeah, this also makes me glad, given the fact that, yeah, I am still a Light versus Walter fan, but unlike everyone else who claims to be, I have actually watched Breaking Bad, and I understand the character of Walter, and still see the connections between the two, and still believe that a fight could genuinely work. I am highly understanding of why people don't like the fans of this matchup, given that I can guarantee most of them have not even touched Breaking Bad and are just in it for the memes. So yeah, I don't really have that much to say on this one, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. Alright, now we get to what's actually going to be a full-on episode of Death Battle, and it's Kratos versus Asura. Okay. At first, I was a little shocked, given that this didn't win the big Tournament of Champions. And even though I fought, like, so hard for Wily versus Tom to win this, and this is happening anyway, I don't really mind. It was very clear that, even despite the fact that Tom versus Wily won, that people still really wanted to see this one. And the crew seemed to really want to do it as well. So, just do it. You already put it in 2 separate tournaments, so like, it's pretty obvious that you want to do it. Glad that they finally just decided to do it. When it comes to the matchup itself, I'm not exactly that hyped for it. I really love the animation preview we got from Devil Artemis for it. I think we're shaping up to have a really amazing fight here. And I really like the idea for the ending that Cap was making up for it. I think that could work really well. But in terms of what I want to see in the fight and all that, I got nothing. I have finally decided to pick up God of War and play through it just to like get more familiar with Kratos. So maybe if I finish that in time for Kratos vs. Asura, maybe I'll have a bit more of an understanding of this. But I've always been a more of a Dante versus Kratos guy, and I've always adored the idea of Asura versus Atrocitus. But I mean, like, it's fine, I guess. I still know that the episode is going to be amazing. So while I'm not exactly looking forward to it per se, I'm still intrigued to see what they make with this. Also, Asura is dying. Oh, but maybe he can win if no, he can't. He's dying. Next up is kind of a weird pick for the Kickstarter. Mahito from Jujutsu Kaisen versus Shigaraki from My Hero. And I say a weird pick not because like this matchup is like controversial in the death battle community. It just feels weird to be one of the stretch goals for this kind of thing, because it's not even that the debate, or I guess the matchup, is like really small when it comes to what's discussed in the death battle community. It's just like when you have matchups like Bowser versus Eggman and Bardock versus Omni-Man, Kratos versus Asura, it just feels a little out of place. Like, yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen is really popular and My Hero just ended, so it definitely makes sense for, like, a commemoration or whatever. But there were other options like Yuji versus Denji that I feel like could have garnered a bit more hype. Though, to be fair, it does make Bakugo versus Yang still not a thing, so very, very happy about that one. Now, don't get it twisted, I'm not against this matchup at all. I'm actually pretty excited to see what they do with it. I'm excited to learn about these characters. I hear that Shigaraki is, like, a pretty interesting villain, and, like, he has, like, a sad backstory and all that, and I feel like I'd like him as a character. And then I hear that Mahito is just insane, so I'm also excited to learn about him. And I've heard that their power sets are also, like, really unique and have, like, a lot of potential to be worked into an animation. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with this one. I just kind of found it a bit weird. Also, I kind of keep forgetting, like, who is who, like, whenever I see the thumbnails for this matchup, and I think that's kind of funny. Let's move on. Oh, boy, moving on, okay. So, next one is Aang versus the Traveler. Now, as you can probably guess, or some of you might know, one of my most wanted fights for, like, in general, is Aang versus Breath of the Wild Link. So, yeah, seeing this announcement was kinda disappointing, but I mean, it's one of DJ's most wanted, and, like, given how much he cooks and, like, everything, I'm still really excited to see what he does with this. Also, I know there's a lot of Genshin fans out there that want to see it on the show, and while I don't care for it at all, I mean, whatever. I'm happy its fans are getting what they want. Also, it's so good to see Aang just finally get the chance in any way to get an actually good, like, representation of himself. I would go into detail about how much Aang vs. Ed, like, really shafted his character and how bad the episode was, but everyone and their mother has said something about this episode, so I won't even bother. So yeah, while I am a little disappointed that we aren't getting Aang vs. Link, at least Aang does get the chance to be in another death battle at all. We get a new series that's highly popular. DJ gets to write one of his most wanted episodes. I'm okay with this. Also, it's implied that I'm getting two of my most wanted matchups of all time, like, almost if not back-to-back this year, so I really can't complain about anything. Alright, next up, now this is a matchup I can get behind. Ash Ketchum versus Yugi Muto. While I'm not that big into the Pokemon versus Yu-Gi-Oh debate, I'm still very aware of just how big that was. I only really got into the Pokemon anime with the X and Y series, and I think that's like what the most I've watched. I've watched a bit of like the first like Kanto section or whatever it's called, and then I've watched a bit of Journeys, but as a whole, I have seen quite a bit of the Pokemon anime, not like the wider margin, but I do have plenty of experience with it, so I'm really excited to see what they do with Ash. And Yugi, well, I'm excited to learn about him. While I don't have a lot to say personally on this matchup, I still think it's definitely so deserving of getting on this Kickstarter, and the fact that it's episode 200 just makes me all the more excited. I just know that Origin is going to cook so much with this. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say on this matchup, but like, man, I'm pretty stoked to see it. All right, next up is Simone the Digger versus Kyle Rayner. I don't have much to say on this one either. While this is an extremely popular matchup in the community, and it's definitely deserving of this Kickstarter slot, I don't really have a whole lot of care for it. Like, I definitely know it's gonna be really, really cool, and I can't wait to see, like, what's done and, like, how cool and visually interesting the fight is. And I'm definitely considering checking out Tengatapa Gurren Lagann, I think that's its name. Like, I'm definitely considering checking that out for this episode, because I hear it's really good. But, like, as a whole, like, especially with the whole, like, cosmic fight fatigue we've been getting as of late, there's not really that much room in me to really be that stoked for this match. Again, I'm not against it. I'm not against any of these picks. It's kind of like I said for Palpatine versus Xehanort a while back. While I do think it's a really cool match, and I would definitely be excited for it, I am excited for it. I just don't have much reason to be, like, super hyped for it. But again, I know it's gonna be cool. And next up is something that has had to happen for a while. Ruby versus Maka. Dude, it is so surreal that after all this time, we have gotten, like, all the matchups that have been talked about since the early days. Galactus versus Unicron, Cole versus Alex, this one, even some oddballers like Kool-Aid Man versus Macho Man. Like, all of those have been talked about and, like, memed in the Death Battle community for so many years. And now, like, this is the last big, like, has to happen eventually matchup. Like, I can't think of any more. Some people are saying that, like, Mickey versus Bugs has been, like, soft confirmed. But, I mean, that matchup, I feel like the one would have had to happen anyway. It was never if it's confirmed, like, it's going to happen someday. But, again, while I'm not, like, that big on Ruby, and I know even less about Soul Eater, so when it comes to this matchup specifically, I'm kind of lukewarm on it. But what makes me really excited for it is just, I'm really excited that Monteum is finally getting, like, his wish when it comes to Death Battle. And to be completely honest, I don't know everything about this, but I do know that this was something they at least wanted to do to honor him for the longest time. They just wanted to, like, wait for the right time. And me personally, I kind of would have waited until Ruby ended. But in their defense, like, I don't see Ruby ending, like, anytime soon, to be honest. Especially with them getting picked up by, Viz Media, I believe. Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know, I'll look it up later. So, I can definitely see, like, why there would be, like, some warrant to them doing it now. And while I don't really have much connection to the actual matchup itself, I know it has a very big connection to Death Battle, and this is an extremely important matchup to the entire, like, show and community. So, yeah, I'm definitely really excited for this one, in terms of that aspect. Also, we have, like, no characters that use, like, scythes on the show, so that's gonna be pretty cool to see, like, how they do that. Alright, and next up, we got Hulk versus Godzilla. Now, this has been a really, I wouldn't say most controversial, because I think A versus Traveler definitely took that one. But Hulk versus Godzilla is definitely one that has had plenty of backlash. Many people don't like it. And yeah, you're definitely allowed to have that opinion if you do. But man, I cannot help myself from really, really, really liking this matchup, dude. I know some people don't really like it for the size difference, but honestly, that's kind of the main reason I like it. I just think that, like, with there just being this one big matchup where they have this big size difference, I feel like that they can really just go all out with, like, everything they want to do for it. Because, yeah, they had Frieza versus Megatron in that size difference. But, like, be honest, did you really notice, like, that much of that size difference? Especially with all, like, the camera angles and stuff that, like, kind of played around that size difference. It wasn't prominent at all. Also, my dogs just started barking, so if you can hear this in the video, then tough, I don't care. But Godzilla was definitely due for another episode. And while I don't really, like, see that much of a reason to bring Hulk back, especially after, like, Hulk versus Broly, I do still think that there is still definitely, like, more to talk about with Hulk. And I feel like that there's still some new stuff that can be said with Hulk, especially since the fact that I think they're, like, compositing both. Not, like, specifically going for, like, the Devil Hulk stuff, which wasn't, like, what they mainly focused on in Hulk vs. Broly, but I still think there is plenty that can be said for Hulk here. So, yeah, even if you're not excited for this match, that's completely okay. You can have your own opinions, but when it comes to me, dude, I cannot wait to see what they do with this one. Also, it's Holden 2020's Most Wanted, and I think that's pretty based. And finally, we get to Gru versus Megamind. Now, something I forgot to mention with Hulk vs. Godzilla is that, like, as of recording this, we haven't reached, like, the goals for these two yet. And while people are, like, freaking out saying that we might not, like, get these two, come on, dude, they're gonna happen anyway. Like, be for real. Ben and the others have made it very clear that these stretch goals are just to, like, really drive that sort of funding for the Kickstarter. And anything that's not reached can still happen in the future. So them putting Hulk vs. Godzilla and Gru vs. Megamind, even if those matches aren't reached in the next, what is it, like 4 days now? Oh my god. They're still gonna happen eventually. Maybe a little later than expected, but I mean, the Death Battle crew knows how much these 2 episodes are wanted, So anyways, Gru vs. Megamind. I am someone that has a particular fondness for the Despicable Me movies. Everyone likes to point and laugh at the minions and say they're really annoying, but I have, like, looked back on them recently, and yeah, I mean, I can still see why, like, some thought they were annoying, but they were never that bad. And Gru is definitely, like, the best parts of, like, each of those movies. Like, looking back on the Despicable Me movies, like, as a whole, like, they were never, like, that bad, like, to the point that people like to clown on them for. And with that nostalgia I have for those movies, that's kind of why I'm rooting for Gru here. I definitely love Megamind, but I was never able to check his movie out until, like a couple years back. So I never had that nostalgia for him, but he's still pretty cool. And I can't wait to see, like, what they all are able to get out of his, like, that one short and his, like, one movie. Oh, and I guess the sequel and the show, too. Whatever. I guess it is new stuff, I guess. But yeah, these two are, like, extremely fun characters. The fight is, like, much closer than I have anticipated, especially with, like, using, like, their minions and, like, the brain bots and all that. And, like, they have lots of fun gadgets, they have fun personalities. I think there's a lot you can do with this match that, like, can really accentuate, like, just how fun and, like, goofy it is, but also, I guess, just cool it can be as well. So I'm definitely extremely hyped for this one. Probably one of the more, like, ones I'm hyped for, to be honest. And I also saw someone have the idea of, like, having Megamind start the fight by, like, trying to shoot, like, the giant sun laser down on Gru, but, like, it has to warm up, and then, like, throughout the course of the battle, it's still warming up, and, like, at the end, like, it like, fires down, or whatever. Maybe not necessarily, like, being the killing blow, but maybe leading into, like, the climax, or the killing blow, or something like that. I feel like that could be a really funny way to include that in there. But there's definitely a lot of ideas that can be implemented in this match, and I'm excited to see where they take it. So, yeah, that's all the matchups that have been revealed with this. Also, here's a small little ranking of each, just because I want to. So yeah, dude, what a stacked lineup this is. While I'm not exactly stoked for each and every matchup here, I think each one does have its own little merits to it. Even if I don't feel like every single one here is that big and super exciting, I still have excitement for each of these. So I'm pretty cool with this lineup we have right here. And also, this is just a fraction of what they have planned, because each of these episodes, like, came with another one that's a complete surprise as of now. So I'm like, man, I'm excited to see, like, what specific matchups they, like, are willing to do for, like, this new, like, independent, like, kind of era. Well, era, I guess. I guess newfound. I'm bad at explaining things. Now that Death Battle is independent, I can't wait to see, like, what all the matchups they, like, want to do are. So, yeah. I'm excited for all these matchups and all the matchups to come. And speaking of matches, there was a very big stretch goal that has been having people talking. The rematch vote. In case you haven't heard, which I'm pretty sure you have, given that you're watching this, and I don't really see why you'd be watching this if you haven't heard about it, but we get to vote on a rematch, or at least everyone who donates to the Kickstarter does get to vote on a rematch, and there has been, like, a lot of buzz surrounding what people, like, think the rematch should be, and there are definitely, like, some pretty good options. Like, I've heard, like, obviously Master Chief versus Doomslayer is, like, the big one I've heard, like, thrown around, and that's been talked about for years. But lately I've kind of seen passion for that, like, die down. Not because, like, people wouldn't think it'd be cool anymore. I still think it could be an awesome animation. But that's really only the reason, like, the only real reason I see, like, it should get a rematch. Because, like, the debate is just non-existent anymore. Like, poor Master Chief, dude. And, like, there's plenty to talk about for Doomslayer, given that the fact that he's, like, a completely different character than he was in, like, the older times when they originally made this episode. But, I definitely feel like there are some better options for him, and probably Master Chief as well. So while I wouldn't be against this one happening, I don't really have a lot of passion for seeing it again. And then there's other options like Mario vs. Sonic 3, which, yeah, I feel like could be fun as a rematch. But I feel like it could happen naturally, even if, like, Mario and Sonic do have other opponents. Like, if they really want to do this one, like, they'll do it. But I don't really see, like, a whole big reason to, like, do it, especially now. Given that we're getting Bowser vs. Eggman as a Mario versus Sonic debate. If this debate becomes interesting, like, sometime in the future, then yeah, maybe there could be something for a Mario vs. Sonic 3. But as of right now, like, I don't really see a huge reason to vote for it. And then there are people saying that we should get Ben 10 versus Green Lantern, or Yang versus Tifa as a rematch. I don't feel like I should have to explain why that's a dumb idea. Just like with the animation for Master Chief vs. Doomslayer being really the only reason people wanting a rematch, the only reason I've seen for, like, matchups like this to get a rematch is to change the result. And when it comes to Ben versus Hal, that's not even gonna happen. It's just gonna have the same result. I used to be a big advocator for Luigi versus Tails 2, literally just because I wanted Luigi to win. And I was, like, preaching that out, and then one guy in, like, the comments asked me, like, well, why do you want it? And then, like, I literally couldn't think of any other reasons why I wanted it besides Luigi winning. So I kind of fell off for it because of that. I kind of just looked for other opponents for Luigi to fight, and then I found, like, plenty of others that can work. And for Tails, too. So it's kind of tricky to like lock down like what specifically I feel like could deserve the rematch treatment. And yeah, there has been some buzz for some other episodes like Terminator vs. RoboCop, for example. But I feel like that episode is good enough for what it is already. I don't really see a whole reason to like really have that episode get a remake. I don't know if the debate has changed that much since it last happened, so I don't really see that big of a reason. Maybe I could be convinced otherwise, but the one that I've seen the most buzz for recently, and the one that I have been conditioned to vote for, is Mewtwo versus Shadow. Now, in case you didn't know, Mewtwo versus Shadow is actually a matchup that I really, really like. In my opinion, it's easily the best matchup for both. And yeah, I do agree that like Shadow getting on for a 4th time is kind of crazy, and I do think that Mewtwo like should fight like Sephiroth instead. That's who I'd like want him to fight. But in my eyes, I don't really see this as being Mewtwo versus Shadow 2. I kind of see it replacing the original. The original is, do I really need to say it? It's so bad, dude. And like with all like the controversy surrounding it, like with like the guy like animating it not having enough time like in his personal life to like animate it, and like the guy who Takahata, like 101, being told to purposely like voice act Shadow badly, and like so much went into this fight to just really make it the dumpster fire that it is in the death battle community. So like seeing such a really cool and interesting matchup that honestly is pretty debatable, like really get that second chance, like I feel like it would just be amazing. I love the vibe of the matchup. I love both of these characters a lot. I feel like there's a lot you can do like with their power sets that like wasn't able to be done last time. And even though like Shadow has gotten on quite a bit, I don't know, I kind of feel like Mewtwo vs. Shadow would be like a really good chance to really do him right, because I'm not that big of a fan of Shadow versus Ryuko. Like the whole edgelord theme wasn't like as big of a deal as they like made it out to be, but I don't know, I feel like that they could really delve into like Shadow as a full-on like for what the character he is. I feel like they could really bring that out with Mewtwo versus Shadow. So yeah, this is what I'll be voting for the rematch slot, unless I change my mind. I don't know. And like I said, while I do feel like Shadow would probably win now, I still think there's plenty to be like debated about the episode. So I still do think that Mewtwo definitely has a shot of winning. So there's also that aspect of like that unpredictability of like one could win now, like the other one could win now, but maybe the original victor could still hold the title. Like there's still that like debate up in the air. So yeah. And finally, just something like pretty small to like touch upon. We did get like confirmation in the Kickstarter that we would be getting like at least like 3 really unique like confirmed like animations by Luis, Torian, and Ismahawk. Luis has made some of the best episodes like on the show. I mean, he's made 2 of the best episodes on the show, and like both of those matchups were like, oh dude, they were so peak. So to get that holy trilogy like it's gonna be pretty cool. Now for what matchup I'm hoping they give him, I feel like just about any matchup would work, but I think Cap has convinced me that Henry Stickmin versus the Second Coming would kind of be perfect for it, especially with all their like abilities and like powers, and like especially with how like fast and with like how fast the Second Coming moves and how like insane Henry's powers and like abilities are. I feel like it'd be a really good fit for Luis's style of animation. Also, Henry Stickmin getting on the show would be, dude, it'd be top tier. Next is Dude, we get Torian back, dude. If you don't know, which you should, again, you're watching this. I don't see why you would not know this if you're watching this. But Torian has made some of the best animations and like fights this show has ever seen. Like, he's made like Terminator vs. RoboCop. Like, I can see like why people like feel like a match like that could get a refresher given that how like janky it is. But it's still pretty good. But he's made some incredible looking fights throughout the years. And to see him like make his triumphant return, even just for one episode to Death Battle, like, would be amazing. I'm not expecting to have like that like 6-minute long animation that he's like known for like back in the day. I mean, it'd be cool obviously to like get that long of an animation, but like Torian's a really good animator otherwise, so I feel like whatever he makes, no matter the length, is gonna be really awesome. And as for the match that he does it for, I don't really know. I kind of hope it's not a matchup that has been confirmed, like Ruby versus Maka or something, even though that would be perfect for him. I hope we kind of get a surprise, but like I said, whatever it is, it's going to be pretty cool. So, yeah, you go Torian. And finally, an Ismahawk fight. The live-action fights are some of the most unique episodes they've ever done. And while there are plenty of problems with them, I still find them really enjoyable, and I still find, like, the concept of, like, these two, like, being in live action, it's like a movie, is really incredible. Winter Soldier vs. Red Hood is one of my favorite episodes of Season 7. Just from how unique it was. So, when it comes to what kind of matchup they do for, their next one, I'm just really hoping it's not Marvel vs. DC. Like, I have no idea, like, what they'd really want to do for that live-action fight. But both of the ones they have done were Marvel vs. DC. Heck, both of them were, like, Batman-related. So if we get something like Moon Knight vs. Azrael, that'd just be redundant at that point. Like, twice over. So, yeah, whatever it is, just be something unique. They're gonna cook anyway, so whatever. Alright, and that's about all I have to say. Man, dude. I love this community, man. Even though there's so much creation, like, from artists and, like, other video makers, like, around, like, happening each day in the Death Battle community, just the fact that I'm even able to be a small part of this amazing community is something that I'm never gonna forget, dude. I'm not trying to make it big and have my name heard or whatever and get that super awesome cameo in Tom vs. Wily, even though that would be awesome. But with the friends I've made through this show, it's something that I'm really, really excited to see come back. This is a show that I have been watching since my childhood, and getting it canceled, well, getting the thought of it getting canceled was scary because I haven't been without this show, and I don't want it to sound like I have to rely on this show for my happiness or whatever, because if I did, that would just be extremely sad. I have other things going on in my life, but this show still makes up a huge part of me, so I'm extremely happy that it's sticking around. Thank you, Death Battle fans, for being really out there with your support for this show, because I feel like without this community, I don't know if this show could have survived. Also, thank you for being suspiciously wealthy as well. We also probably couldn't have gotten here if it weren't for just how much money they have gotten from this. There is more than enough money now to get this show up and running and keep the train going, and I am so excited to see where the future takes us. Here's to another forever or however much long of Death Battle. And if anyone from like the team or like anyone else just so happens to be watching this, I'm not exactly like counting on it, but in the slight chance they are, thank you. Thank you for creating this amazing thing that has created this amazing community that has drawn in so many viewers and created something that so many talented people are passionate about, whether they be working on the show itself or making fan stuff for the show itself, or like sparked other people to create their own stuff because of it, thank you for making it, no matter how big of a part you played in it. Thank you. Alright. I'm going to make, I promise, okay. I'm going to try to make a probably bigger video soon. But like I said, I've been super busy, like, this summer and, like, this past spring. So that's kind of the reason why I wasn't able to make videos. I'm kind of glad that we were able to have that, like, break for me to focus on myself, because I feel like I did need to get some work done without focusing on my online presence. So I feel like that break was definitely warranted, but I definitely would like to get back to making this stuff. So, yeah, expect something relatively soon. Alright, peace out, y'all. Also, does someone want to pitch Mother Gothel versus the Witch for me?